Good morning, Jonathan. How are you this morning?
I'm very good, Patrick. And look at us. I mean, for those of you that are going to be watching this on your new video talking heads option rather than just the podcast, we are both a vision in blue.
Yes, we should say, as well as releasing this as a normal podcast, it's also going to be available, should you so wish to torture yourself that way, as a talking heads video. And at the moment, it appears that I'm in a galaxy far, far away with a very dark background. But as you said, you look resplendent in Cisco blue.
Well, I thought you've got a UC Today, T-shirt on. I thought I'd wear my bit of Cisco logo wear.
Yeah, well, yeah. So we both look. I mean, I was about to say good, but I think that would be lying to both the listeners and the viewers. So it's been quite a while since we spoke about Cisco collaboration and communication. I think it was back end of November we did the last pod of the year. So I wanted to first of all catch up with you this year. It's the first time we've spoken, even though we're into February. It still feels relatively fresh in the new year, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things where, from a work point of view, when do you stop wishing people a happy new year? So, as we haven't spoken, happy new year, Patrick.
Thank you. Happy new year to you too.
It's probably a little delayed from that. So, and I'm always reminded at this time of year, I think, about the whole, a lot of what we do around the whole collaboration technology piece is about trying to change people's behavior, change habits, change the way people work. We always talk about digital transformation. Those phrases are used quite a lot. And I'm always reminded at this time of year about the whole, how many people, I don't know whether you made any New Year's resolutions, but, generally people make lots of New Year's resolutions that, by, I think there's a, Black Tuesday or something. There's a day in January when, by which time everybody's given up on their New Year's resolutions. And it just strikes me the similarity between, making a New Year's resolution and sticking to it. And some of the, if you look on the web or some of the BBC News articles, how do you stick to a New Year's resolution? A lot of those messages, I think, resonate in terms of change management and adoption of this type of technology, because fundamentally what we end up trying to do, whatever the collaboration technology is to try and change the way people work. It's to change the habits that people have been used to coming into work for X number of years to get stuff done. And what we're talking here a lot about is technology that's enabling them to work in a different, more effective way. But in order to do that, there's a change management and an adoption piece that needs to follow on with that. So I'm always reminded at this time of year with New Year's resolutions, the challenges that we face with this, helping our users basically go along that journey.
Yeah, I didn't make any New Year's resolutions, and I've learned historically that I always break them. So I've now gone with a don't make any, don't break any philosophy, which has worked quite well. But you're right. And it's something that Cisco are really putting right up the priority list in terms of the user adoption piece. And on their collaboration side, obviously, I've been keeping my eye and my ear to the news wire. I haven't seen a huge amount of Cisco collaboration news since we last spoke.
No, I mean, so Partner Summit was November, and I think we did our last podcast at the back end of November. And that was the first time I think a lot of people had seen Amy Chang, the new Cisco collaboration leader, on stage. And, we talked on the last podcast about some of the messages that came out of that, the whole idea of, bridges not islands, simplification, a lot of the unification of the platform and everything else. Since that time, there's been not a lot new, and that's probably not unexpected. I mean, if you think that, obviously you're going into that holiday period, the US has Thanksgiving, then obviously we're into Christmas and New Year, and then we're kicking off the New Year. So in terms of actual new announcements and anything that you could hang a hat on and said, okay, this is a new announcement from Cisco, there's not been a great deal of activity around that space, and I don't think that's unexpected. I think that's just this is more. They've just had Cisco Live out in Barcelona for Europe. That was very, it's not a collaboration specific event. It's focused on all of the Cisco business units of which collaboration forms a part. There was a collaboration element to that, and there were lots of, collaboration pieces. I wasn't there, but, there were lots of pieces that people could go along and view. But there wasn't any major, announcements during that event.
No, and I think You're right. We first heard from Amy Chang at the Partner Summit at the end of last year, and she's done a couple more interviews in the new year. Not with me, unfortunately, although hopefully in the future that'll change. And she's reiterated that messaging that you were talking about in terms of bridges, not islands, the whole simplification piece, winning the hearts and minds of customers. Cloud first, not cloud only, which I quite like as a premise. I think that potentially rings a lot of bells with a lot of people, and I think that's been reiterated in the interviews that she's done with some of the analysts that I've seen recently, and also the piece that I find really interesting, which really pertains to her background with a company, which was her previous company, is the idea of cognitive collaboration and bringing more context into the collaboration space.
Yeah, and I think that phrase, cognitive collaboration, I think is going to be where any announcements that we see, or a lot of the messaging will be behind that as a headline, if you like, that cognitive collaboration. As you say, that's very much her background. With a company, and we made the joke last time about a company. I know it's a company, but that's what the company was called. And we're starting to see some of those. We've as a Cisco partner, we get involved with some of the early field trials of things. We're just starting to see stuff that's been demoed on stage before, and that's been talked about. But the idea of, okay, I join my meeting experience, and if you imagine, most meetings, what's the first 5 minutes of most meetings taken up with, right? And the answer to that is introductions, right? Is people going around the table, spending, and everybody goes, okay, you've got 2 minutes, and everybody waffles on for 5 minutes about who they are and where they're from and what they've done and their background, and all, just really trying to get to the point where you earn the right for why you're there at the meeting anyway. How can you make better use of that time by actually having a lot of that information maybe readily to hand within the meeting experience? So, one of the things they did show at Barcelona was the idea of that Webex experience. You have a list of participants, so you can see who's in the meeting. Always, a key benefit of a web meeting over an audio-only conference, the ability to see who's in that meeting. But now the ability to hover over a card and actually pull information about, okay, so not only can I see that Patrick Watson is in the meeting, I can see which company he works for. I can see maybe some background of that company. I can maybe get some context about stuff that you've done recently or in the news or tweets or whatever. Now, it starts straying into some grey areas around privacy and how much data do you pull, and would you really want somebody's Facebook profile pulled in? Probably not. That's a but the idea that the concept, I think, is very sound. The idea that I'm in a meeting, and not only can I see who's in the meeting with video turned on, I can see what their name is, but I don't have to remind myself that you're called Patrick. I know that you're called Patrick, and I see you're speaking, but I know which company you're from. I know a little bit about your background. I know a little bit about the context. So I think we'll see more of that come in, and that under that banner of cognitive collaboration. I think a lot of what Cisco's collaboration direction will be under Amy will be focused around that stuff, because that's very much her background.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think the concept is very strong, and you're right. You lose a bit at the beginning of a meeting, but let's not forget. I mean, everyone does their research. Before I first ever met you remotely, I did some so if you can use some sort of AI and ML and some sort of intuitive tool to pull that into a meeting, it potentially negates the preparation work in advance of a meeting and that initial wasted time at the beginning of a meeting when you first actually meet. And it might be because I'm a journalist, I'm not so worried about the privacy implications. I think that anything that's public on the web, if I have a public Facebook profile, my Twitter is obviously public, any articles I publish are out there and I want them to be promoted. I don't really have a problem if the system pulls anything that's in the public domain in to help meeting participants understand a bit more context about what I'm doing. So that is a really strong piece, that sort of that cognitive and pulling that extra information in. The other thing we should say, which you were talking to me before we started recording about where Cisco are going to be focusing, is that interoperability, bridges, not island piece in terms of working with other manufacturers, and there has been a bit of development around Webex and OneDrive.
Yeah, and so bridges not island is a phrase we talked about last time. It's been around, for a long time. Cisco have been using that phrase really to say, okay, look, we have this WebEx meetings experience. We're very proud of that WebEx meetings experience. We've modernized it, brought it, Amy Chang made the point that, it's been brought into the 21st century, if you like, in terms of, it now looks like something from 2019 rather than something from the year 2000. And the encouragement very much is for people to get onto that latest WebEx experience. So they've done a lot around that whole meetings experience to modernize that, to make sure that's good. So that's that's their core business. But it doesn't take long, if you're starting to talk about collaboration, that not only do people want that real-time collaboration, the stuff that Cisco historically have been very good at, but there's that asynchronous collaboration, that collaboration around content, which has been Microsoft's strong suite. If you look at the Office suite and everything else, everyone's got Word and Excel and PowerPoint on their desktop. Even if you're a Mac user, you might have gone to Keynote and all of those other capabilities, but you've probably got the Office suite hiding on there because at some point you're going to have to edit and look at a Word document. So that's very much Microsoft's strong suite. I think within the Webex Teams environment, you could upload files, but they were stored within that Teams environment. So just recently, we've seen the first iteration of the capability of okay, I can now be in my Webex Teams environment. I can upload some content from OneDrive, and it isn't all SharePoint. It isn't like simply taking that content out of OneDrive and then uploading it to Teams. It's effectively putting a link to that information into that Webex Teams space. And now when I click on it, it opens up Word or Excel or PowerPoint online, and I can actually start editing that and co-editing that with other people, because I'm leveraging the Microsoft experience of being able to do that, but I'm enabling to do it inside my Webex Teams environment. Similarly, if you're a Microsoft Teams user and you want the Webex meetings experience, there's an integration there as well. So now if you're within the Microsoft Teams environment, you can launch a Webex meeting, seamlessly, one click, all of that other good stuff that you talk about. So, and it isn't just Cisco, Microsoft. Cisco are doing stuff with Google. So, Google, all the G Suite stuff in terms of, the ability to schedule and open Webex meetings within that Google environment. And obviously, Cisco have got an ongoing partnership with Apple, so that, if I pick up my iPhone, I get a much closer integration between that. I go to my diary, I press what looks like a call button, but actually it launches the Webex meeting and starts my Webex meeting. So that interoperability piece is a very key part of this Cisco messaging under, again, that banner that they're using of bridges, not islands.
Yeah, and I was at Integrated Systems Europe at the start of February, which is a big AV event and systems integrator event that takes place in Amsterdam. And I saw that firsthand with a company called Oblong, who have a series of collaboration hardware devices called Mezzanine, and they did a live demo there of Mezzanine within a WebEx Teams environment, which just continues that theme of interoperability and closer integration with third parties.
Yeah, Cisco have a lot of what they call solution providers. Oblong are one. There's a number of other providers who basically provide additive services to enrich the experience. So Oblong Mezzanine is a fantastic experience. It does look like something out of Minority Report. The ability to move screens around the room and everything else. For the right use case, because it's not a cheap solution, it's a fantastic experience, and you can see why they're successful in that area. There are other partners like Viopta and AppSpace that provide other capabilities, bolted on to that core collaboration experience to do the stuff that Cisco doesn't do, right? Instead of Viopta does a lot of some of the analytics and monitoring side of things. AppSpace allows, for video broadcast, single wire. It does stuff to be able to push notifications out for to endpoints or video devices in the environment. So there's lots of solutions out there that really add and enrich that solution. And Cisco are not unique in that. Microsoft have their own big third-party sort of ecosystem providers that provide additional capabilities.
I think you've already given me a few there potentially that we're going to see the importance of the cognitive collaboration increase, and potentially the interoperability increase as well as we go through 2019.
Yes, and I think if you look, there's been I was doing something, I think, for your colleague Rob, and looking back at what was the highlights of the year for 2018. The big highlight for Cisco was obviously there was a massive change in the leadership. In terms of Rowan going, Jonathan Rosenberg, Tom Puro, a number of other Snorre, who you met. A lot of that leadership has gone, and Amy's come in and brought her her new leadership in. And one of the articles that was out there was talking about the difference between peacetime and wartime management culture. And so, I'm not quite sure I've quite digested the subtleties of that, but I think, what we're going to see is that, there's not just been one or two personnel changes within that collaboration group. Amy's there at the top, and there's a whole new set of executive leadership around that collaboration group. And I think that culture will see, Amy made the point, I think, that the comment had been made that not a lot of people had seen her on stage and the rest of it. And her response to that was, well, you didn't need to, right? You didn't need to talk to me because I've got my team and other people that are maybe better positioned to talk about the particular things that they were interested in, rather than, in Rowan's era, it was very much, Rowan was he was a fantastic and remains a fantastic public speaker and presenting that vision and everything else. Amy's a very, very different character, I think, from that type of thing. And like anything, we'll have a very different management style and leadership techniques, if you like, that we'll see, and how that impacts the product and the strategy and the vision. We'll see, but very much that, I think, cognitive collaboration, that's going to be the headliner for as we start this year. And we'll see, I think we'll continue to deliver on the roadmap and vision that they've outlined.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see what big news stories come out in 2019 when it comes to Cisco collaboration and where they go next in terms of direction. Enterprise Connect comes up, which is a big event in the States, which I'll be attending, and I'm hoping that I can secure a bit of an interview with Amy there. So either we will speak either before, preferably before, so you can prep me with lots of very insightful questions, or after to review some of that content.
No, that'd be great. So are you furthering your jet set around the world? Your passport, you're going to have to get one of those bigger passports, aren't you, with more pages in it for all the stamps?
Yeah, well, I mean, effectively, I don't even show the passport anymore. They just pass me through as international jet setter. But yeah, racking up the air miles. But I'm really looking forward to Enterprise Connect. I'm really looking forward to hopefully chatting with Amy about her plans for the collaboration division. Well, as always, though, for the meantime, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast and now video. And I will speak to you in a month or so.
Fantastic, Patrick. As always, a pleasure. Thank you very much. Have fun. Take care.